Look, I can respect punk, but I hit my limit when it comes to posers. So, this is a video game review. This is me kind of getting out of my system a game that I streamed for a little while on my Twitch channel. Link in the description if you want to follow me on there. I stream Wednesdays and Fridays. Uh yeah, there's I feel bad about this because this was a smaller game, smaller team, and some of the things I'm going to point out are a direct result of that. But I need to talk about Born Punk. Now, this is a pixel art point and click adventure, very reminiscent of stuff from the 90s, stuff that I grew up on, stuff that I like. And initially, I liked this game quite a bit, but it started to lose me until eventually I just had to stop. This is a future set game. So it is, sort of that Blade Runner feel. It is dealing initially the main character that you are controlling is a hacker. There is also a corporate character that you control at one point, and there is an android character that you control at one point. Well, not at one point, at multiple points, but I bowed out before all their stories came together. But it started out really well. You start out with Evie, who is the hacker, and through her, in the way that these point and click adventures normally go, and take a look at this, pick up this, use this, get the information on this. Oh, pull up the description on the cat on the computer, on whatever. And through that world building, which if you're not into point and click adventures is a little bit clunky, but I'm used to them, so I was fine with it. I thought it characterized her very well in terms of a character who, dealt with a lot of crap, was trying to get out from under it, but also who doesn't make great decisions on her own. That made her very human, which I appreciated. She wasn't the kind of blank slate you often get as a primary character, even in some adventure games. Oftentimes, it's the supporting cast that has the most personality. Evie's got quite a bit, and her supporting cast is cool as well. I actually enjoyed their dynamics and seeing them play off each other. I liked the little commentary that she gave, doing the standard adventure game thing of speaking out loud her thoughts on a thing, but it not only informed me about the thing, but gave me a sense of her character. And while it is a fairly standard cyberpunk kind of world, I like that as a setting. So I was getting into it actually pretty well. And then we had the first character jump. And we start controlling a sort of corporate head. And she's not nearly as interesting a character, but it was still kind of compelling because what was going on with her was like, wait a minute. Because it was like some kind of AI had jumped into her head and had taken some degree of control, but it was also missing tons of data. So it was like, as you were looking around in this woman's body, but hearing the thoughts of this AI as it looks at a painting, a window, a shelf of books, and observing them in this very cold, calculated, very detached way, not thinking of them with any emotional connection. I'm like, oh, look, books, like, rectangular bound repositories of information. Like, it was interesting to have that perspective on the world, and I was immediately intrigued by what was going on. So I was still kind of like, yeah, okay. And this is obviously a very strange thing that's going on, and it kind of tied into some stuff that was hinted at with Evie. So I was like, ooh, okay, I can see how this is going to tie into things. Then we went to the android, and things really started coming apart. The android character, Grandmaster Flash Drive. I don't know if it's my place to say that this character is racist. He might not be, but let me put it this way. You remember the second Transformers movie, and there were those two characters, I think it was Mudflap and Skids, that everybody hated, and there was like a big passing of the buck because of the racialized way that they spoke and the way it kind of demeaned the characters. And it just came off as really racist by the fact that they're not people, they're robots. But you know how it was so bad that like everybody tried to pass the buck. The the writers blame the voice actors blame the director. Nobody wanted to take responsibility. You remember those guys?
Because you the one
forced me to that call, right? So
I think he's scared.
what are we gonna do with this shrimp taco?
We just bump a cap in his ass, throw him in the truck, and then nobody gonna know nothing, not me.
Yeah, not in my trunk.
Yeah, Grandmaster Flash Drive talks exactly like them. He's real annoying. And the thing is, there would be glimpses of the fact that this is an affectation. This is not legitimate. This is something he's choosing to do, because every now and then he would drop it, and presumably a more sincere voice from him would speak up, and it had interesting thoughts, because not only is the guy, kind of talking this this awkward, feels uncomfortable version of jive talk, but like he's also frequently coming across as foolish. Like, this is a standard problem with a lot of adventure game characters, and they ask for clarification on stuff that somebody really living in that world might not need clarification on for the sake of the audience. Asking, oh, well, what's that? When in reality, somebody who just exists in that world wouldn't need to know that, but they do it for the sake of the audience. That's always a hazard with adventure game characters, to make them seem kind of foolish. But with him, even by that metric, it was bad. Because, like, this was stuff I'd figured out already. I was caught up, and he was still like, what? I don't get it. Dude. He was so irritating. And the fact that it was clearly an affectation means they knew it was irritating. They knew it was inauthentic. They knew it was, on some degree, kind of messed up, and they did it anyway. Validating it by saying, oh, well, he's just behaving like that. Okay, but I still have to listen to him do it. He was real infuriating, and made all the worse by the fact that his section comes up and he has to get powered because he's about to run out of juice, so he needs a battery and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense given he's an android. But where we jump to the corporate woman, I immediately understood at least some way in which this was going to impact at least story, or in some way build to a greater story. Grandmaster Flash Drive, not a clue. It probably connects later, but the first segment we had with him just felt like it was there because, well, we have a third character, so now we have to go to the third character, even though his segment in no way ties into or builds on anything that is going on. We're just going to make you sink time with this incredibly annoying character for a while. Great. Thanks. Thanks for that. Oh, he was really bad. And it kind of soured me a lot on it, and I found myself losing patience with the game, so that even when it got back to other characters, I had a lot less patience, and I started to hit more puzzles that felt they were hitting the thing that is the problem for me in a lot of adventure games, which is the feeling of, well, how the hell was I supposed to know that? And there is one feature within the game that I'm glad the game has, that you can hit a button to basically highlight everything that is interactable, to counteract the issue of I couldn't see that particular collection of pixels that was slightly darker than the pixels around them, because that was an issue before until I realized that. But even with that, where like I wasn't missing the fact that stuff was interactable, some of the stuff later on, it was happening more and more frequently that I was having to look up solutions, and found myself going, how the hell was I supposed to realize that? And part of the reason I started looking up solutions was because I was hitting a point where I don't know what this thing wants from me. I feel like I've already solved what it wants me to do, but it's making it more complicated than it needs to be, probably for the sake of padding. And I probably could figure this out myself, but I would be brute forcing it, trying everything on everything till I get a hit. And I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to look it up. And I did. And then I would go, how the hell was I supposed to know that? That was happening more and more often. I don't drop an adventure game on the first instance of how the hell was I supposed to know that. But if they start coming more rapidly, that's a reason for me to bail. So by the time we went back to Grandmaster Flash Drive a second time, I was done. I couldn't anymore. And it's a shame, because visually the game evokes the era that it is going for very well. It seems to be a decently put together story. I don't know if it actually builds decently. As I said, I didn't get to the end, and this is largely a narrative-driven genre. Could have gone either way. Could have been really good. Could have been not so good. I don't know. I didn't stick with it. And like I said, I feel a little bit bad because this is clearly a small team project. And there are some issues that reflect that. The sound mixing is really inconsistent in terms of in even line to line. Some characters' voice lines being way quieter than others, or even way quieter than the line they said right before that. And I know to a certain degree, sometimes that can't be helped depending on the raw audio you got, that maybe it was recorded too quiet and there's only so much you can crank it up before it starts to distort. But there's also a lot of ambient sound, like it's a scene taking place on the street. So it's not like you're going to hear that sound in isolation. You probably could have brought it closer to the sound level of everything else. But even if I but that's the kind of thing that wouldn't have bothered me if the spell hadn't been completely shattered by Grandmaster Flash Drive. Like, he broke the spell the game had over me, and I started noticing everything else more. It's distinctly possible that the puzzles weren't getting more frustrating after him. It's just I had less patience for them after him. That might have been what happened. So ultimately, while there may be other issues with the game, I'm going to say that every issue became more noticeable, and I was far more forgiving of it before Grandmaster Flash Drive showed up, and I was way less forgiving afterwards because he made me resent having my time wasted by this incredibly irritating character. And even if he turns out to be vital to the story, this is still bad writing for the character because the other two characters were introduced in a way that made clear how the story in some way incorporates them. I have no clue why this guy's there. Presumably, he's going to link up with the other ones and do something eventually. But there's nothing in his entire first section. There's a little bit in his second section. Like, at that point, I saw how it was going to connect. Doesn't justify the first section, which has no reason to exist and is really irritating. I feel a little bad kind of crapping on this game, but I'm frustrated because it started out well, but then it lost me. Born Punk. Did anyone else play it? Did anyone else finish it? Does the story pull together? I'd actually like to know. Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, but don't worry too much about that. Try and take a relaxed attitude around here so you can just come on back next time you need a break. Time to thank some patrons, and this time I'm going to say their names as if I'm greeting them, welcoming them to a party. Robin Moore, Zuman Lafula, Goddess Elida, Turok, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Gozer the Gozerian, Oliver B, Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Melinda Walters, Jen, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Fanabi Likes the Poodle, Robin Powell, T-Love, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Rosalind Bennett. Have fun tonight, and thank you for your support. I don't know why I decided to do that this time, but I don't know. I'm having fun.